Welcome back to Griffonomics, where we conduct financial investigations to define the risk before we look at the reward. Today, we're diving into AeroVironment, ticker AVAV, following a whirlwind of strategic acquisitions, new contract awards, and a geopolitical environment that is radically rewriting defense spending priorities.
It really is.
We have spent days synthesizing a massive stack of sources, earnings calls, detailed research reports, corporate filings, all signaling a pivotal transformation at the company. And if you think of AVV only as the niche drone maker it once was, you are missing the most profound story in the defense sector today.
That narrative shift is precisely the core conflict, and we have a very clear synthesizing thesis emerging from this deep dive. AeroVironment is transitioning from a niche drone maker into a diversified next-generation defense prime, uniquely positioned for the 1935 moment of global rearmament. But its path to doubling revenue to $4 billion must navigate a temporary bureaucratic funding lag and the high execution stakes of its massive $4.1 billion BlueHalo acquisition.
Okay, let's unpack that, because that thesis sets the stage for a transformation that is not incremental, but foundational. We need to start with the macro picture that defines this 1935 moment you mentioned. What exactly is the defense sector preparing for, and why are we invoking a historical comparison that is almost a century old?
We are looking at what analysts, particularly those at Stifel, call a generational precipice in defense spending and philosophy. They argue that the defense sector is experiencing a strategic inflection point, a moment so profound that they drew the comparison to the state of manned aircraft in 1935.
Wow.
It sounds hyperbolic, I know, but the historical parallel is compelling, and it really highlights the scale of the budget shift we are about to witness.
Why 1935 specifically? Why not 1941 or 1980?
Because 1935 was the year before the explosion. In 1935, aviation manned aircraft was merely a negligible portion of the total military budget globally.
Just a small piece of the pie.
A tiny piece. It was considered an auxiliary capability, a reconnaissance tool, maybe a minor strike asset. But the global landscape was shifting rapidly, and political leadership started recognizing the transformative power of air superiority.
Right.
Stifel points out that by 1955, just 20 years later, air power consumed over half of the military's entire investment account.
Over half. That's incredible.
Moved from a niche technology to the absolute core force structure. And they see the same inevitable trajectory for unmanned systems, drones, autonomous vehicles, loitering munitions today.
So the key takeaway is that the growth isn't going to be a gradual 3 or 4% increase year over year.
No, not at all.
It's going to be an exponential, mandatory replatforming of the entire defense budget.
Exactly. Currently, drones and autonomous capabilities command a low single-digit percentage of the budget. But given the lessons of recent conflicts and the geopolitical environment, they're poised to become a massive budget share gainer in the coming years.
And that kind of shift requires a complete reevaluation of military doctrine, moving away from expensive, high-value assets toward volume.
It does. And that leads directly into the strategic philosophy underpinning this massive rearmament. It's driven by a concept we really need to define for you: the shift from exquisite legacy platforms to attributable mass.
That's a great term.
It is, and it's the essential trade-off being made at the highest levels of the Pentagon. The exquisite legacy platform is something like a stealth bomber or a massive aircraft carrier, incredibly expensive, technologically complex, and nearly irreplaceable.
Right. If you lose one, it's a national headline, a strategic disaster.
A national strategic event, exactly. The pivot is toward attributable mass, sometimes called volume warfare.
That phrase, attributable mass, it carries a lot of weight. Lay out the strategic goal of that concept for us.
It means creating low-cost, expendable systems that can be deployed in overwhelming numbers. The philosophy dictates that the loss of an individual drone or system should be merely a tactical, not strategic failure.
Okay, so you can afford to lose them.
You can. And this approach achieves two things. First, volume just overwhelms an adversary's defenses. Second, and critically, it changes the economic calculus of conflict.
How so?
An adversary is forced to expend an incredibly expensive interceptor missile, which can cost upwards of $1 million, against a platform that might cost only $10,000 or $20,000.
That asymmetry, it's unsustainable for the other side.
It makes defense financially unsustainable for the enemy.
This sounds like a strategic accountant is running the war, We are swapping high-value, high-cost platforms for sheer volume and low unit cost.
That's a good way to put it.
And the source material shows this philosophy is now driving very specific programs across all branches of the military. What are the clear examples that prove this is happening now, not just in a white paper?
We see this mass philosophy institutionalized across the board. In the air domain, the flagship example is a collaborative combat aircraft, or CCA, program, the Loyal Wingman drones.
Right, the ones that fly with the F-35s.
Exactly. These unmanned systems are designed to fly alongside exquisite manned platforms like the F-35, acting as scouts, weapon carriers, or even decoys. They provide mass, range extension, and sensor reach at a cost that is far more acceptable than building another manned fighter jet.
So instead of a $200 million manned jet, you build one $100 million jet and five $20 million loyal wingmen. The force multiplier is significant.
Precisely. And in the land domain, the key mandate is the Army's LASSO program, Low Altitude Stalking and Strike Ordnance.
LASSO.
Yeah. This program is directly driving the acquisition of loitering munitions, the kind AeroVironment specializes in with its Switchblade family. The goal is to provide infantry units with organic, precision, and expendable strike capability that previously required calling in far more expensive air support.
So it democratizes the high-precision kill chain down to the squad level.
It does. And the Navy is making similar moves in the maritime domain, shifting away from massive multi-role ships.
But that makes sense.
That's right. The Navy is shifting towards single-mission hulls to reduce the cost and complexity of maritime platforms, instead of building one massive warship that costs billions and does everything.
They're building lots of smaller, cheaper boats.
Smaller autonomous vessels. We see this with programs like the MASC program for medium unmanned surface vessels and the Ghost Shark program for extra-large unmanned underwater vehicles.
So it's all about distribution and volume to make the overall fleet more resilient and harder to target.
That's the idea.
This is clearly a seismic shift, but large-scale military transformations usually move at glacial speed. This feels different. It feels mandated. What is the legislative and executive force providing the tailwind to overcome that bureaucratic inertia?
This is where the political will meets the strategic necessity. We're seeing a significant nonpartisan legislative tailwind, particularly with the signing of the Big Beautiful Bill on July 4th.
The Big Beautiful Bill.
That's what they're calling it. And this is not just a standard appropriations bill. It provides billions in explicit, directed funding directly aligned with AV's core portfolio. It's effectively accelerating the procurement process.
Okay, let's dedicate some time to the specifics of that funding because this is the money that flows directly to the company's position to deliver attributable mass.
Right.
What are the specific key allocations that tell us where the budget is now flowing?
Well, the funding is highly concentrated in 4 pillars of this new unmanned fortress. This bill represents a clear mandate, the sources detail, $2.1 billion for medium unmanned surface vessels, $1.5 billion explicitly allocated for loitering munitions, which is a crucial immediate demand signal for AV's market-leading Switchblade product line.
A huge signal.
Then $1.5 billion for unmanned underwater vehicles, and $1.3 billion designated for counter-UAS, or CUAS, systems.
That is a staggering commitment. $1.5 billion for loitering munitions and $1.3 billion for CUAS provides a clear, immediate, and enormous tailwind for AeroVironment. It confirms the market direction is precisely where they already specialize. But as you mentioned, this is not just about money. It's about breaking up the old bureaucratic system that favors legacy primes.
It absolutely is.
No.
The political drivers here are viewing the traditional procurement timeline, the decade-long R&D cycle, as a national security risk. We have Secretary of War Pete Hegseth's directive, which Stifel analysts interpreted as a declaration of war on the Pentagon bureaucracy and the status quo of legacy prime contractors.
So the goal is speed.
The goal, stated clearly, is speed, volume, and operational readiness now.
And the vehicle for achieving that speed is a new, specialized initiative focused on rapid deployment, the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, run by Owen West.
That's the engine of the change. The DOGE initiative is focused on simplifying procurement, cutting the red tape, and rapidly deploying systems that are already mature and ready to fly.
And the goal is transformative, right? Something like 30,000 drones.
At least 30,000 drones in the near term.
Yeah.
We are talking about orders of magnitude difference from previous acquisitions. This is not about funding a long-term research contract for a futuristic prototype. This is about buying ready products that can be fielded immediately.
That fact alone The mandate for 30,000 ready products explains why a company's manufacturing capacity or manufacturing slack becomes the most valuable commodity. This explicitly favors nimble companies like AV over legacy primes, who have optimized their supply chains to eliminate any inefficiency.
It creates a structural competitive advantage for companies that maintain that slack. Legacy primes often operate on models optimized for shareholder return high dividends, share repurchases, which eliminates any excess capacity.
They use just-in-time manufacturing.
Exactly. And that model fails spectacularly when the government issues a sudden, urgent order for 30,000 systems. The analysts suggest that if the legacy primes are going to take this threat seriously, we need to see a signal change, even a sacrificial dividend cut or share repurchase reduction, just to demonstrate they're willing to shift capital from shareholder returns back into production capability.
Wow, so that's how serious the threat of market share loss is.
It is.
That comparison is stark. The analyst's view is that the old guard is effectively running an economic model that is structurally incompatible with the new Department of War demands for volume and speed.
That's right.
This is the environment AeroVironment is thriving in, and it leads directly to the second major point: how the $4.1 billion BlueHalo acquisition instantly transformed them from a niche drone maker into a systemic force.
It's the move that validates their entire strategy.
Yeah.
Before this acquisition, AV was an exceptional, specialized niche player world-class at building the drone platform and the munition, the deliver piece of the puzzle. Now, they are a diversified defense technology leader spanning all domains: air, land, sea, space, and cyber. The all-stock deal, valued at $4.1 billion, didn't just add product lines, it added the connective tissue.
Connective tissue, I like that.
The best analogy is that AV used to just be the manufacturer of the kinetic weapon. Now, they've acquired the integrated air defense system that coordinates the entire fight and protects the forces.
So the core strategic value then is owning the entire operational sequence, which AV defines as completing the kill chain: detect, decide, and deliver. How does the merger specifically integrate BlueHalo's non-kinetic capabilities, the software, sensors, and lasers, with AV's existing kinetic systems to achieve this full chain ownership?
It provides the centralized brain and a layered defensive nervous system. On the crucial detect and decide side, AV now has a unified software environment, AV-Halo.
AV-Halo.
And this serves as the key common command and control interface. This is mission critical. Disparate robotic systems, drones, ground vehicles, sensors, satellites need to literally speak the same language in real time.
And AV-Halo provides that translation.
It provides that translational capability across the fleet.
So AV-Halo is the operating system, but the real power lies in the application layer, the AI and intelligence modules. The sources highlight Cortex for intelligence fusion and Mentor for warfighter training. Let's start with Cortex. What type of real-time intelligence is AV acquiring here?
AV-Halo Cortex is the AI-driven intelligence fusion environment. Its job is to ingest massive amounts of data, open-source intelligence, OSINT, sensor feeds, satellite imagery, signals intelligence, and synthesize it into actionable insight faster than any human analyst could.
Faster? How much faster?
Management explicitly noted in the sources that Cortex can detect and characterize emerging drone patterns around critical infrastructure in a matter of minutes.
Minutes.
A task that previously took a team of specialized analysts hours, sometimes an entire day. This acceleration of insight is the decide function, reducing the time from detection to engagement.
That reduction in the decision-making cycle from hours to minutes is a profound strategic advantage. It shifts the tactical tempo entirely in their favor. But the training component, Mentor, suggests they are also using this real-time data to rapidly prepare warfighters.
That's where the system becomes truly revolutionary. AV-Halo Mentor is the Warfighter Readiness Suite. It uses immersive virtual reality and augmented reality, VR/AR, to rapidly build and refresh proficiency on mission-critical weapon systems like Stinger and Javelin missiles.
Okay.
But here's the clever part, the integration. Air defense teams can immediately rehearse engagements against the specific threat profiles detected by Cortex.
Wait, so the AI detects a new, unusual flight pattern or swarm behavior from an adversary, and within minutes they can generate a fully immersive 360-degree virtual environment generated from real-world elevation data, allowing the warfighter to practice defending against that exact new threat.
Precisely. It's predictive training based on live intelligence. It makes training highly relevant, modular, and deployable, even as a portable kit in forward operating environments.
And this was validated with a major Army contract, right?
It was. The entire approach, the convergence of real-time AI and advanced VR training, was validated when AV won the contract to be the lead software and system integrator for the U.S. Army's Human Machine Integrated Formation (HMIF) program. That win cemented AV Halo as the key common command and control interface for future autonomous formations.
That ties the detect and decide functions together perfectly, creating the operational brain of the system. Now let's move to the physical defense layer, the deliver component, which has expanded dramatically beyond just the switchblade kinetic munition into counter-UAS and directed energy. What does the OCUS laser system bring to the table in terms of hard kill capability?
The LOCUS Laser Weapon System, LWS, provides a field-proven hard-kill counter-UAS capability, which is a massive leap for AV. Through the BlueHalo acquisition, AV recently delivered 20-kilowatt class LOCUS LWS integrated onto highly mobile platforms, specifically the Joint Light Tactical Vehicles, or JLTVs, and the Infantry Squad Vehicle, or ISV, platforms. This was part of the U.S. Army's AMP-HEL prototyping effort. This system is not just theoretical, it is battle-proven, demonstrating high operational availability in deployments outside the U.S.
The cost-effectiveness of these directed energy systems is perhaps the most compelling disruptor in the concept of attributable mass defense. If you are fighting a swarm of low-cost drones, you cannot afford to launch a $100,000 missile for every $10,000 target. What is the approximate cost per shot for the LOCUS system?
That's the figure that changes the game entirely. A single laser shot can cost as little as $1.
$1.
About $1. Think about the economic leverage that provides. You have virtually unlimited defensive ammunition, constrained only by power generation, which is highly manageable on a vehicle-mounted system.
So it's an incredibly economical defensive option.
It is. Compared to traditional interceptor missiles, which can cost tens of thousands or even millions of dollars per use, LOCUS is providing soldiers with a reliable, rugged, and precise defense against the evolving threats of modern swarm warfare.
So AV now provides the ultimate soft kill and economic defense. But the sources also confirmed that AV secured a contract for a long-range kinetic interceptor missile, which suggests that layered defense using missiles for high-value or long-range threats is still absolutely necessary.
Exactly. Even with directed energy, a layered defense strategy is essential. Lasers are phenomenal for high-volume, short-range threats, but you still need a kinetic option for extended range or complex environments. AV was selected for the U.S. Army's Long-Range Kinetic Interceptor program, securing a $95.9 million contract for the Freedom Eagle-1, or FE-1 missile.
FE-1.
This missile is specifically designed to neutralize Group 2 and Group 3 drones.
Okay, we should probably quickly define what we mean by Group 2 and Group 3 drones, since those terms are critical to understanding the threat profile they are addressing with FE-1.
Good point. In the defense world, drones are categorized by weight, altitude, and speed. Group 2 drones typically weigh between 21 and 55 pounds, fly under 3,500 feet, and are often used for reconnaissance or lighter strike missions.
In Group 3?
Group 3 drones are larger, weighing up to 1,320 pounds, and can fly above 18,000 feet, often with extended endurance and larger payloads.
So the FE-1 is designed to take down these more sophisticated tactical assets, protecting assets deeper behind the front lines.
That's right.
Beyond air and ground defense, the BlueHalo acquisition also instantly vaulted AV into two highly lucrative, long-term strategic segments that are about foundational infrastructure, protective materials, and space connectivity. Let's start with the materials side, this $500 million Helmsman contract.
This is a tremendous long-term revenue stream for highly specialized defensive R&D, the $499 million Helmsman contract. This is a 10-year IDIQ from the Air Force Research Lab.
Okay, stop us there. We need to define IDIQ contracts for the listener because it's crucial to understanding AV's financial risk structure. What does IDIQ mean?
IDIQ stands for Indefinite Delivery, Indefinite Quantity.
Okay.
In simple terms, it means the government has authorized the maximum potential spend under the contract, in this case $499 million over 10 years, but they haven't actually released the money yet.
The money is released via task orders.
Exactly, via task orders. So this Helmsman contract establishes AV as the trusted provider for this capability for a decade, guaranteeing them a seat at the table for every task related to it. But the revenue flows gradually as specific work orders are issued.
That's an excellent distinction. So specifically for Helmsman, what is the specialized work AV will be performing?
The task is to develop next-generation material technology designed to guard warfighters and their sensitive electronic systems against harmful electromagnetic radiation and deter future directed energy strikes.
So we are talking about highly specialized, high-value domain expertise.
We are. It establishes AV in the high-end R&D and protective technology sector, moving them far beyond just being an aerial systems vendor.
And the other piece, space, is fundamentally about connectivity and ensuring a resilient, high-speed data transfer capability across a global multi-domain battlefield.
That's the critical infrastructure piece that underpins the whole general contractor analogy. The BlueHalo acquisition established AV's leadership in space communications, securing a substantial $240 million contract with a potential value of $380 million, including options for long-haul laser communications terminals.
And these are for upgrading the geosynchronous satellite constellation.
Correct. Under the SCAR and Badger programs.
Why is laser communications so critical compared to traditional radio frequency or RF signals?
It's disruptive for two main reasons: speed and security. Laser communications move enormous amounts of data much faster than traditional RF links.
So you get that high bandwidth backbone.
Exactly, the backbone necessary for AI systems like Cortex to function in real time across continents. And critically, laser communication beams are incredibly narrow and directional, making them much more secure and far less susceptible to jamming and eavesdropping.
Right, which is a huge vulnerability for RF.
A huge one. This capability is absolutely essential for creating a resilient, high-bandwidth nervous system for future space networks, ensuring instant information access for decision-makers operating AV-Halo.
So we've established that AV has gone from selling the projectile to selling the entire integrated ecosystem. The satellite link, the AI commander, the laser shield, the protective materials, and the munition itself. But none of this matters if they can't execute on scale and speed, which brings us to the operational side of the strategy. The commitment to risk-on R&D.
This is where AV's corporate DNA diverges sharply, structurally, and economically from the legacy prime contractors. Management explicitly contrasts their model with the traditional approach. Legacy firms typically wait for the government to issue a formal request for proposal, or RFP, wait for the government to elect a prototype, and only then start building the system based on government funding. It's secure, low risk for the prime, but agonizingly slow.
Often taking 5 to 15 years to field a new capability.
Exactly. And AV's model is the opposite, the ready-to-wear model.
I like that name. Ready to wear.
It fits perfectly. They adopt a commercial business model mentality. They invest their own internal capital, their internal R&D or IRAD funds, to develop disruptive solutions at speed ahead of customer requirements. They are innovating first, bringing solutions to market faster, and only then generating the requirements with the customer who realizes, wait, that company already has what we need.
They're viewing the current geopolitical era as an urgent land grab.
It is a land grab where innovation speed matters infinitely more than short-term margin maximization.
This means they are betting their own money on future military requirements. That is a substantial financial risk that a CFO at a legacy prime would likely never approve. Is that financial risk profile sustainable for AV?
It's a calculated risk, but it is entirely aligned with the government's current demand signal, which is demanding mature, ready systems.
They are essentially building the inventory before the customer realizes they desperately need it.
That's it. It's like the difference between a custom tailor and a ready-to-wear fashion empire. The government needs to clothe an army now, and only the shop with racks full of ready products that meet 80% of the spec is going to win the massive, urgent orders flowing from the big, beautiful bill.
The perfect flagship example of this risk-on philosophy is the P550 UAS. Walk us through the P550 case study and how it proved the financial wisdom of this strategy.
The P550 Group 2 eVTOL drone is the ultimate proof point. This highly capable unmanned aerial system was developed entirely using internal R&D funds. This allowed AV to maintain total control over the design cycle and, crucially, to make strategic decisions that facilitate rapid uptake. For instance, they strategically designed the P550 to be non-ITAR in its base configuration.
That's a highly technical distinction, but one with huge financial implications. Why is being non-ITAR so important for its market potential?
ITAR stands for International Traffic in Arms Regulations. When a system is heavily ITAR restricted, every single export sale to an allied nation requires extensive, often years-long bureaucratic review by the U.S. State Department.
So it's a huge bottleneck.
A huge one. By making the base P550 non-ITAR, AV can bypass significant regulatory friction, facilitating rapid DCS sales or direct commercial sales to international partners. This speed advantage has the potential to create a $2 billion-plus franchise for the P550 platform internationally, simply because they can deliver the product faster than any competitor who is shackled by complex export controls.
That's a genius move, designing the product with the international market speed baked in from the start. And the domestic success seems to validate that aggressive internal investment.
It absolutely validates it. The P550 was down-selected for the U.S. Army's highly competitive $1 billion long-range reconnaissance LRR program, a major program of record.
And it won because?
It won because it was a ready product. Management noted that competitors, in stark contrast, often had only paper designs or immature prototypes that required significant additional government funding and years of development.
So when the Pentagon comes calling for 30,000 systems, they don't have time to fund paper designs. They need proven hardware. The P550 is also central to AV's current system of systems approach. The sources highlighted a unique partnership that showcases the platform's modularity and its ability to extend the kill chain.
Yes, the strategic partnership with Red Cat Holdings illustrates what they call a marsupial integration.
And marsupial integration.
Yeah, this involves the larger P550 acting as a mothership, carrying and releasing smaller F-Ang FPV drones first-person view or racing-style drones mid-flight. This integration, utilizing the P550's inherent modular open architecture, achieves something strategically vital. It effectively extends the kill chain deep into contested territory.
So the $100,000 Group 2 P550 flies 100 miles, releases $1,000 FPV drones to conduct the final risky strike, and then returns. It's an incredibly efficient use of resources.
It is. And the speed of development really seems to be a core, repeatable competency across the board, not just a one-off success with the P550.
So this risk-on model applies to their core market-leading Switchblade platform as well.
We saw the same approach with the expansion of the Switchblade anti-armor product line. New variants, the 600 Block 2, the 400, and the 300 Block 20, were mostly internally funded and developed quickly to expand the product line ahead of formal requirements.
So they're continuously iterating and improving their flagship products using their own capital.
Which means when the government decides it needs a better anti-armor loitering munition, AV already has it in the factory.
And the interoperability of the systems they acquire also speaks to this agility.
Absolutely. The commitment to open architecture is non-negotiable in this new era. An anecdote from the Silent Swarm 25 exercise highlights this agility perfectly.
What happened there?
AV's Open Architecture Electronic Warfare, or EW, systems were successfully integrated onto Terradynamics Transwing VCAL UAS in a single day.
A single day.
One day. This demonstrates that their systems are not proprietary silos. They're designed to plug and play immediately with other advanced platforms, which is precisely the interoperability the Department of War is actively demanding.
That level of agility and readiness is why AV is consistently named a top pick in this transforming defense landscape. Now let's translate this strategic positioning and operational speed into the financial reality, looking at the recent quarter and their capacity build-out. This must be a major transition quarter given the BlueHalo acquisition.
It was a massive transition, and the financial results from Q2 FY26 demonstrate that the strategy is translating into undeniable scale despite significant headwinds. Management specifically referred to challenges posed by the ungated U.S. government shutdown and continuing resolution, which is a major theme we'll return to later.
Right.
But despite that friction, the headlines were record-breaking.
What were the key growth metrics that defined the quarter?
Top-line revenue growth was staggering. Q2 revenue reached nearly $473 million, representing a 151% year-over-year growth rate.
And that includes BlueHalo for the first time.
This is the first quarter where the BlueHalo components truly start to flow through the P&L, demonstrating the immediate revenue injection. More importantly, for future visibility, the forward-looking metrics, contracts, and bookings were even stronger.
Let's focus on those future indicators, the contracts, and the backlog.
The company reported record Q2 bookings of nearly $1.4 billion. The total ceiling value of new contract awards secured during the quarter reached a historic high of $3.5 billion.
That's a huge number, but let's bring it back to the financial stability. What does that mean for the revenue pipeline?
Critically, the funded backlog stands at $1.1 billion. And let's define funded backlog clearly. This is money that has been authorized, appropriated, and signed into contracts.
So it's guaranteed revenue.
It's revenue that is guaranteed to flow through the income statement as work is performed. That $1.1 billion gives them 93% visibility into the midpoint of their full-year guidance, which they maintained at $1.95 billion to $2 billion in revenue.
And EBITDA.
Adjusted EBITDA guidance was also maintained at $300 million to $320 million.
A 93% visibility into the current year's guidance is extremely high and comforting to investors, demonstrating the predictability of their core business, even factoring in the recent government friction. But the truly compelling piece of the financial story isn't just the current bookings, it's the commitment to future capacity. This is about securing their status as a long-term winner by addressing the manufacturing slack imperative we discussed earlier.
This capacity investment is the ultimate physical proof of their ready-to-wear philosophy and their confidence in the 1935 moment. Legacy primes often eliminate all excess capacity, the slack to maximize quarterly profit efficiency. But that model fails when the government needs a wartime surge. AV is building manufacturing slack by prioritizing scale.
And the epicenter of this effort is what management calls the Utah surge.
That's right.
Tell us about the Utah facility. What kind of sheer volume capacity are they building for their flagship product?
They are establishing a brand new, highly automated 100,000 square foot facility in Salt Lake City. This facility is a massive capital commitment, but it demonstrates their confidence in sustained, long-term demand for loitering munitions. This new facility has a potential capacity to produce over $2 billion in Switchblade systems annually if they run multiple shifts.
$2 billion. That is staggering capacity, and it guarantees they will be the go-to provider for loitering munitions under the new $1.5 billion mandate.
It does.
So they are moving from a specialized supplier to a true mass production entity built for wartime velocity. And this factory is not constrained to just one single product line, ensuring that capital investment is diversified.
Absolutely. The design philosophy is flexibility. We'll produce various Switchblade variants, but the floor plan and tooling are flexible enough to accommodate the production of other AV products and one-way attack solutions as customer demand shifts.
So it's a distributed and resilient approach.
It is. This distributed manufacturing approach, spread across multiple states and facilities, provides resilience and risk diversification, which perfectly aligns with the Department of War's demand for scalable, reliable production capability that can't be knocked out by a single event.
Looking at the margin trajectory, the shift toward a higher ratio of product revenue versus service revenue, combined with increased international sales, should also improve overall profitability as this volume ramps up.
That's the financial multiplier effect of scaling production. Management explicitly expects profitability improvements throughout the year. Adjusted gross margins are forecasted to reach the high 30s by Q4.
And that's driven by product mix.
Primarily by a more favorable product mix, specifically product revenue, which has higher inherent margins, increasing over lower margin service revenue. And the strong international DCS sales we discussed, particularly to allied nations with urgent needs, carry better margins than some long-term government contracts. This financial velocity reinforces the overall picture of a company built for hypergrowth.
This brings us to our final verdict, which synthesizes this massive transformation. When we put the macro environment, the 1935 moment, the BlueHalo acquisition, the risk on R&D, and the new manufacturing scale together, what is the final verdict on AeroVironment as an investment case?
The final verdict is that AeroVironment has successfully transformed itself and is now the general contractor of the autonomous battlefield.
The general contractor.
They have deliberately built or acquired every component necessary to field a resilient, modern, multi-domain fighting force. They don't just sell the drone, they sell the entire integrated architecture required to fight.
Let's list those core architectural components one final time to solidify this concept for you, the listener.
They provide the autonomous aircraft in like the P550 and the kinetic munition Switchblade. They provide the sensor and radar intelligence via the Titan family. They're laying down the high-speed information highway across the global battlefield via the satellite link and laser communications, the Badger systems. They provide the AI commander and command interface that accelerates decision-making through AV Cortex.
And the defense?
And they provide the laser shield and defensive architecture via the COST system. Management believes this integrated, turnkey architecture puts them on a clear, realistic path to doubling revenue to $4 billion in the next 3 to 5 years, targeting a sustained 15% to 20% annual growth rate.
That is the opportunity defined. Now, our mission must turn to defining the structural friction and the high stakes of execution. What key structural friction points must investors monitor closely, given this high growth trajectory and premium valuation?
There are two primary risks that are interconnected. The first and most immediate is the bureaucratic funding lag. We discussed the big, beautiful bill and how AV has secured billions in sole source IDIQ contracts, $3.5 billion in Q2 awards alone. However, the actual flow of funds, the release of the task orders that monetize those IDIQs, has been materially delayed.
And what caused that delay specifically?
It's the result of the U.S. government shutdown and the subsequent continuing resolution environment. This bureaucratic friction has postponed the authorization of spending derived from that new bill.
So the money is there, it's just stuck.
It's legally appropriated, but the mechanisms to release it are stalled.
And what is the consequence of that funding lag on AV's current financials and cash flow?
It creates significant revenue and cash flow lumpiness. Management has explicitly forecasted that 55% of the second-half revenue will be concentrated in Q4 of this fiscal year.
That's a huge back-end load.
It is. And this timing risk affects cash conversion and results in a temporary but significant buildup of unbilled receivables in short term.
Can you explain unbilled receivables?
Sure. Unbilled receivables simply means AV has done the work or delivered the product, but the government's payment processing system has slowed, so they haven't been invoiced or paid yet. This demands strong patience from investors watching the quarterly cadence, as Q3 cash flow could look tight before the expected Q4 surge.
The second major risk is one of execution, and the implicit burden placed on them by their valuation. When a company is positioned as the next-generation prime and poised to double revenue, expectations are astronomical.
Exactly. The current valuation multiples reflect those high expectations and imply perfection. Analysts, like those at Bank of America, note the stock trades at a very premium valuation.
What kind of numbers are we talking about?
Currently 91 times 2024 earnings, compressing only to 53 times by 2028 based on projected growth.
So what does that mean for an investor?
It means two things. First, investors believe the $4 billion revenue target is achievable. Second, this high valuation leaves virtually no room for execution error, especially concerning the largest piece of the puzzle, the massive integration stakes of the $4.1 billion BlueHalo acquisition.
That is the ultimate high-wire act, isn't it? Merging two corporate cultures, integrating complex software stacks, Cortex, Mentor, Locust, and ensuring the necessary cost synergies are realized, all while scaling production in Utah and navigating a major funding lag.
It is the ultimate test of management. Any misstep in integrating the disparate technology stacks or failure to meet the aggressive growth forecasts necessary to justify those multiples could lead to rapid volatility.
So if they execute...
If AV successfully executes the BlueHalo integration and the government bureaucracy unlocks the promised funding, the path to $4 billion is wide open. But those two friction points, the funding lag and the execution risk, are the structural challenges that must be constantly monitored.
A fascinating tension to watch unfold. The shift from exquisite to attributable mass is truly redefining the defense industrial base, and AeroVironment has positioned itself right at the epicenter of that transformation, essentially daring the market to keep up with its pace of innovation. That brings us to our final provocative thought for you to think about.
The core strategic question for you to consider is this. In this land grab era where innovation speed matters more than short-term margin maximization, can AeroVironment sustain its risk-on IRED strategy-building billion-dollar franchises, like the P550 on its own dime, long enough to capture market dominance before the legacy primes, under intense pressure to make sacrificial dividend cuts, can finally adapt to the new manufacturing requirements? The market is shifting from custom-built to mass-produced, and the race for scale is paramount.
Essential question, defining the future of the entire defense industrial landscape.
Risk defined, portfolio protected.